Why are there such a lot of shady fuckers involved in the history of diagnosing autism? All neurotypical people, by the way. Hateful, horrible people have been involved in the history of autism diagnosis and treatment, especially. And I mean, awful people. I just saw a TikTok there about Aspergers and why that's connected to hate and anti-Semitism and child abuse. That term. And I also want to get into this guy that invented gay conversion therapy, making the gold standard of autism treatment. This is insane. Why have we got so many horrible people involved in this? Well, I know why, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the autism industrial complex. A lot of people making a lot of money from autistic people and parents of autistic people by pushing fear on them. My next video about this is going to be about ABA, which is the gold standard treatment for autism, which is invented by the same guy that invented gay conversion therapy, Ivor Lovaas, who was a horrible man and said some awful things about autistic kids, which you won't believe. But then I'll get into that on the next video. But this video, I wanted to talk about Hans Asperger. Now, Asperger's was a definition of autism that people use. We don't use it so much anymore. The whole function, the labels of functioning levels are not really used anymore. But I mean, I was diagnosed as, for example, level 2, and it's the 3 levels. 1 is mild, 2 is moderate, and 3 is severe autism. And I believe Asperger's was the one before 1. So you've got neurotypical, 1, 2, and 3. Sorry about that. Who's that calling me? So you got, neurotypical, Asperger's, level 1, level 2, and level 3. Just for reference, I was diagnosed as a level 2. And the levels can change apparently from when you're from like 2 to 5 is particularly fluid. Alfie was diagnosed as a 3, but I definitely think he's more like me and more like a 2. But anyway, I shouldn't be talking about this because this is something that the autism community doesn't do anymore, and I appreciate that. It's not that helpful, especially when it's so fluid. But this guy Hans Asperger, what a treasure he was. So he was one of the earliest researchers into autism, and he was a German doctor working under the Nazi regime in World War II. And that's all that was really known about him, that he established a level of autism that was between neurotypical and 1, which was like high functioning autism. And that's all people really knew, is that he happened to be German, happened to be in that time, but he was doing this research. They discovered recently that this guy was deeming kids, and it was work and research on kids. He was labeling them from Asperger's to severely autistic. And it turns out that he wrote, there was communication that they've just discovered, letters between him and the Nazi director of human medical experiments. I don't know if you know, but the Nazis did horrendous experiments on kids. Like, I don't even want to go into it. It's like, in research for this video, I looked up and I couldn't go in. The worst things you can imagine, basically, they did to kids. Medical experiments under Nazi Germany. Any kids they deemed to be unfit or disabled or Jewish, or it was horrendous. So anyway, turns out lovely Hans Asperger was, on top of deeming these kids with Asperger's, he was deeming those as potentially useful to the Nazi Party, useful because of their special interest and their hyper focus. And I guess he was thinking that they would be good soldiers. I think that was the idea, is that the Asperger's kids, because they were so obsessive, would be good soldiers and good use to the Nazi Party. What he also did was deem the kids that weren't on his Asperger's level, i.e. more severe, as unfit for society. And those kids were sent to the medical experimental facilities for... fucking hell. For experimenting on kids. This stuff kills me. Hearing this stuff kills me. Because obviously it hits me twice, because I'm autistic and I would have been sent to that camp as a kid, but even worse than that, because I'm level 2. Even worse than that, I think about Alfie, and it just absolutely destroys me. So the kids that had speech delays would have been sent to the medical experiment facility. Kids that couldn't talk, kids that were non-verbal. He was only counting as useful the kids that didn't have speech delay, didn't have obvious intellectual disability, or basically the least severe you could imagine, meaning they still had eye contact, they just had special interest but no speech delay. So it's very, very slight autism, like wouldn't even affect anyone in the real world that badly. But so I wouldn't have been in that category, neither would my son. And oh man, I feel sick. And I'm thinking, why there's so many horrible people involved in the history of diagnosing autism. Like this other guy, Ivor Lovaas, he was a nightmare, this guy. And there's an institute now that's called the Lovaas Institute, which is like a research into this ABA therapy. And they've named it after the guy that invented gay conversion therapy. And they don't see a problem with that. And they don't see a problem with the fact that this guy used the same... I'm going to get into this on another video because this is a whole thing. But how is someone so problematic still so lauded? And how are people still like using the term ABA and Ivor Lovaas when he was such a horrible like piece of work? I mean, it's beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me. You know what I haven't done for a while? I haven't checked if that's recorded, because I did just get a phone call. So yeah, I literally just found out about this. I was scrolling TikTok, like you do, and one of the creators that I follow just had a video about Asperger's, and he was like, this is super problematic, and he was like, this is anti-Semitic and ableist. And I was like, anti-Semitic? I wonder what that's all about. And then I researched it, and my God. So these two treasures of human beings were right at the beginning of people being diagnosed with autism, right in the beginning of what we now call autism. And it just struck me. I wouldn't want to like be in the same room as either one of these guys, and we got both of them in our history. God, it's been a rough start for people with autism, hasn't it? I mean, I would have been killed by the Nazi Party. Experimented on and killed. And I never would have made music. And think of all the kids that were killed and tortured just for being autistic, that had all this incredible potential for genius. And I see kids, like very severe kids who can't communicate and use iPads to communicate, and you can see this genius in them. I've never met a kid, and I've met a lot of kids through taking Alfie to therapies that are very severe, and they've all got some magic going on. I'm telling you, I've never seen a kid that doesn't have something amazing in their eyes. More than, I'm going to say this, more than the neurotypical kids. I've noticed that there's a spark with autism that I can identify with and see because I have it too. You know, we are restricted in certain things, but in other things, God always balances it out, doesn't it? Doesn't he? Or she, or whatever you believe. I believe in God, and I believe that there's whatever a deficit you have, God gives you an asset, a positive. And even the most severe kids that I see, I sometimes think they're even more creative and they have even more potential the more severe they are. And I know it's a controversial thing to say, but I see it. I look at their eyes and I see this incredible inner life. And it makes me so happy, but also, you know, I worry about them. But imagine having all that potential and being a little genius in 1945. Well, I'm not very good with dates. Sorry, I didn't finish high school, but I did do well in music. Autism, I've got to thank for that. But imagine being a kid then who just was snuffed out and tortured and experimented on because they were autistic. Breaks my heart. So that's why we don't use the term Aspergers anymore, because it's rooted with that horrible piece of work. And I hope that we stop using the name Ivor Lovaas, because he's even worse in some ways. So my next video is going to be about ABA and about him. But yeah, I wanted to just I don't normally make videos this time of day, but this affected me so much. I wanted to jump on and talk about it. I love you guys. Thank you for watching my videos. Let's talk about something else tomorrow. If you don't already, apparently a lot of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so I feel like I should point it out. If you like my videos, please hit subscribe. It really helps my channel. Love you. Speak tomorrow.